Well, notwithstanding the previous 30 days, we are big fans of food and faith here on the Busted Halo Show. And our first guest this evening has a new book that features both. Dr. Michael Foley is a professor of patristics at Baylor University and professor of theology at the Aquinas Institute. He's also the author of over 400 articles and 14 books, including Drinking with the Saints, The Sinner's Guide to a Holy Happy Hour. His latest book, co-authored with the cooking priest, Father Leo Padalinghug, friend of the show, is called Dining with the Saints, The Sinner's Guide to a Righteous Feast. Welcome back to the Busted Halo Show, Michael Foley.
Hey, thanks so much for having me back, Father. It's good to be back.
Now, the last time we had you on, it was for one of your previous books. I know you write a lot of books, but one that we were definitely interested in. You were doing a cocktail demonstration live in studio with a live studio audience at our SiriusXM studios in Rockefeller Center. Here we are in the new post-COVID world, and I'm looking at you on Zoom.
I know, and that was so much fun.
That was great.
Especially, I was coming from Waco, Texas, going to the big city, and your studio was up in a fancy skyscraper. It was magnificent. I really liked that. That was a fun night.
Well, and also, I still have, you gave me an apron that had the Drinking with the Saints. I still have the apron.
I forgot what a generous soul I was. It was a long time ago. That was pre-COVID as well. I've become very stingy after COVID.
Yeah, really? Not handing out aprons at all? No, it's like little business cards. Well, I thought oftentimes when we have guests on Zoom, I pick my Zoom background. I was thumbing through all my pictures. I'm like, well, I could be in front of like a plate of sausage, but I decided this photo that I took while eating dinner in Salzburg, Austria. So this is a dining photo and lots of saints there. And in fact, in a couple of months, not less than that, we'll be bringing a group of pilgrims through that whole area on a Danube cruise. So we got about 160 listeners then that'll be some food and wine and beer tasting involved in that. But tell us a little bit about, if people don't remember or don't have a copy of, and you should, Drinking with the Saints and what you did there. You've done something similar here with Dining with the Saints, in that you have many of the saints on our regular Catholic calendar organized by their actual saint feast days. So you can go through the year and go, what day is it? And flip it open, find a saint. And you co-authored this with Father Leo Padalinghug. He knows his stuff.
Boy, does he ever. So yeah, just to give you some background, Drinking with the Saints, which came out in 2015, pairs wine, beer, and cocktail suggestions with the feast days of the church year.
Yeah.
So it follows the liturgical calendar. And then I did two sequels, a Christmas book, Drinking with Saint Nick, and then Drinking with Your Patron Saints. Finally, after writing those 3 books about drinking, it occurred to me, with all that drinking, I should probably eat some food.
A little something in your stomach. Yeah.
Exactly. So fortunately, Regnery, my publisher, they're the ones that paired me with Father Leo.
Oh.
And to do this cookbook. And it was just a perfect match.
Oh, yeah?
Because I provided the saint stories and then particular food suggestions. And then he provided the actual recipes, which was the perfect distribution of labor. Trust me, you do not want an Irishman in the kitchen. So having Father Leo.
So you've got Foley is coming up with the ideas, and then Padalinghug. Now, he is Filipino. Did he have some Filipino recipes in addition to like Italian food and German food and all that?
Absolutely. So Filipino-American, born and raised in Baltimore. So he's got some, Old Bay seasoning and other kinds of American fusion going on.
A lot of crab cakes.
And then he studied in Italy, and I even believe studied for a bit with the Cordon Bleu school. So he really knows his stuff, and he's so good at what's now called fusion cooking. That sort of Asian spices but Western ingredients. He's a fantastic chef.
Well, we're talking with Michael Foley. He's the author of Dining with the Saints, The Sinner's Guide to a Righteous Feast, that he put together with Father Leo Padalinghug. We love it when you're on the show because we get to talk some real gustatory things. We had an actual cocktail demonstration the last time you were on. So let's pretend that we're rolling up our sleeves and I'm just picturing like Father Leo with an apron. He's got like a big pan in his hand and he's talking to the camera, but we don't have him. So we'll have to pretend that I'm a priest that can cook. And that's a big stretch. But essentially what you do is you go through the saint calendar. So people might be in fact thinking of their favorite saints right now, or the saint that's on their birthday or their patron saints. When you approach something like this, do you go, well, here are my faves, and this is what I think they would eat? Or based on some of your research, you find out the kind of things that they did enjoy eating?
No, actually, it was more the latter. That there are two things that made this book actually kind of easier to write than the drinking books. For one simple reason, like we don't know what cocktails St. Thomas Aquinas would have liked, right? I mean, because there was no hard liquor, or there wasn't cocktails. So anyway, but
there weren't those big ice cubes that you can put your logo on. None of that had happened yet.
No martini glasses in the 13th century. I mean, it really was a trying age. But we do know what St. Thomas Aquinas liked to eat, right? So we don't know what liquor he drank, but we do know what he liked to eat.
Now, and then with all due respect, because of notes he made, or maybe some smudge on the page, here's a little sauce. I mean,
like DNA tests of the fingerprints on the manuscript.
Okay.
No, actually, because of his death, he was on his deathbed, and the doctor asked, "Is there any treat you would like?" And there was a particular fish that he always enjoyed in France. But the problem was he was dying in Italy, and they didn't have it was a particular kind of sardine. They didn't have it in Italian waters, and the doctor was really sad. He went to the docks, and just as he was walking to the docks, a ship pulled in with a fresh crate of these sardines.
Whoa! Yeah. Thomas's first miracle.
Exactly.
Just this side of death. Now, Crystal Apart, producer of the Busted Halo Show, if, God forbid, something should befall me, and people approach you and say, what do you think he would want as his final meal? Please cross out sardines from any country. That will be just a big X through that. That is not what I'm looking for at the end.
We share a lot of food photos on our little group text. Not once have I seen sardines, so I don't think that would have been my guess.
Now, right before you joined us, Michael, I told the audience, I'm heading to your fair state. I'm heading to Texas tomorrow. I'm flying into Austin. And I said, I will not, the wheels will not have touched the tarmac for very long before I have some good Texas barbecue and some brisket and all that. So, I mean, that may be, when you started saying that, I'm like, what would mine be? Yeah, brisket would be up there. Risotto maybe also.
You're absolutely right. I've become a complete barbecue addict since having moved to Texas 18 years ago. Everything you've heard about it is true. It's wonderful stuff.
Yeah. Now, okay, so now we're on that topic. Anything perchance, anything in that realm paired up with one of the saints? Like meats, kind of grilled meats, maybe like St. Lawrence, because he's like, turn me over. We have like a nice barbecue.
Well, I don't remember specific barbecue suggestions, but Father does have a lot of really good meat suggestions. So, for example, for the Feast of the Immaculate Conception of Our Lady, since she is the patron saint of the United States, he came up with this amazing burger recipe that involves blue cheese and oh gosh, I can't remember what else it was, but it was like
something red tomato, blue cheese,
it was
white cheddar.
It was an incredibly decadent burger, and I look forward to having it. I'm marking it for December 8th.
December 8th. Well, we're joining us on the Busted Halo Show this evening, Dr. Michael Foley, professor at Baylor University, professor of patristics, the Fathers of the Church, professor of theology at the Aquinas Institute. Of course, I think like a lot of people do, maybe even in Barnes & Noble, they pull it off the shelf and they quickly flip to my birthday. Now, there's not one of the reasons I go to my birthday is there's not really, in the Roman calendar, there's not really a St. David. So I usually take as my patron saint or my namesake the feast of my birthday, which is St. Jerome on September 30th. But as close as we got in your recipe book was September 29th, and I am not sad that I had to settle for duck à l'orange because I quite enjoy duck à l'orange. So on the Feast of the Archangels, September 29th, you've got St. Michael, And the recipe is duck with orange sauce. Tell us a little bit about that. And even like some of your description, because a lot of times that's a good example of a feast day where people say, angels or saints, or how did they get that that notoriety? And what do angels like to eat?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I'm so glad you brought up that particular example, because you were asking me, how did we pair these things?
Yeah.
And one option is we knew what the saint liked to eat.
Right.
Well, obviously, you can't do that with angels.
Right.
They have no culinary preferences.
They do not.
So, but option number 2 is, what are the culinary traditions that grew up in Europe and the Middle East over centuries that were tied to particular feast days? And as it turns out, Michaelmas in England and Ireland was a huge harvest festival. And
Michael, like Archangel Michael.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, the nickname for St. Michael's Day, September 29th, is Michaelmas. The mus is mass, right? So they had Christmas for Christ's Mass. They had Michaelmas for Michael's Mass. There are about 20 of these old English words that have mass at the end.
Yeah.
So anyway, Michaelmas was a big harvest festival, and the big thing was fat fowl. So a Michaelmas goose was an outstanding option for Michaelmas Day, but duck was another option. So we figured that the average American wasn't going to get too excited about cooking up a goose. I've actually done it. I loved it. My kids hated it. So
don't people say that when you're like in big trouble, like your goose is cooked?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But we figured, but duck was another option. So we decided to go with duck because duck is awesome.
All right. So Father Leo's recipe, he's got roasted duck with orange and carrot. Serves 4 to 6. I might take exception if I'm at the table. It says 1 duck, 2 large oranges. Yeah, I'm done. You got me there. I'm happy with that. But it's really a lot of detail. Like, even if you don't really know how to cook, these are great recipes. Because he does the whole Julia Child thing, just presuming that this is introductory level. Let me teach you kind of the basics of cooking. And of course, we know he's good at it.
Yeah, but I also like the way, because I'm not a professional chef, and I do some cooking, but not a lot. But I like how he speaks English to us in the instructions. It doesn't get too technical.
Here we are with Michael Foley on the first day of June. So if we flip in the book to today, you've got a pizza recipe. And in that, you talk about, maybe expand on this concept a little bit for us, humble foods and what they can teach us about the saints. So pizza, you described as a humble food.
Yes, indeed. And so what's amazing is that some of our favorite foods today were foods that were invented by the poor. And pizza is one of them. Barbecue is actually another one. It was always the leftover bits that the rich didn't want and the poor could afford, that they transformed into delicious meals. So there's a kind of an allegory for the Christian life in that. You take the scraps from the table, you take it with humility, and you turn it into something beautiful.
And it is like God elevating the basic elements, almost like what we do at the Mass, something that's very simple and plain and basic and humble, wheat and water, flour and water, that God, through God's grace, becomes the true presence of Christ. So it also kind of mirrors the sacramental experience.
You're absolutely right. It's also kind of an imitation of the incarnation itself. When God humbles himself, in that humility, the rest of us get elevated.
Wow. So today, June 1st, the pizza recipe paired with St. Francis Caricciolo. I'm not familiar with his work. St. Francis Caricciolo. I mean, first I thought, I was like, oh, is this Francis Ford Coppola? He's got a winery. We know that. St. Francis Caricciolo for today, June 1st.
Yeah. And a second option, by the way, is St. Justin Martyr. His feast day is also June 1st. I think we have him in a separate section of the book, but you can find him in the index. But there's a delicious recipe of sumac spiced chicken, because St. Justin Martyr was from Palestine, and this is a Middle East chicken dish. and it's very good.
I usually hear the word sumac paired with the word poison. Poisonous sumac. I guess this is the non-poisonous sumac.
I would hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. I would always, when I'm playing out in the yard, Mom's like, watch out for the poison ivy or the poison sumac. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it sounds scary. Sounds like something from Vulcan.
we have sumac trees in Texas. They're native to the state of Texas, but they're beautiful. They're and they're not poisonous. Sumac is the Arabic word for red.
Oh, okay.
And so there may be a lot of different spices. So the sumac tree in Texas is called sumac because it has a red bark.
Well, I wouldn't let you go, Michael Foley, without asking. I mean, of the hundreds of recipes in this book, do you have a favorite saint and/or recipe, or even just one that you had an idea and Father Leo really kind of hit it out of the park? Like, wow, that really took it to a level I couldn't imagine.
Well, a good example of our collaboration was the fish story with Saint Thomas Aquinas.
Sure.
He was thinking of the mystical story that shortly before his death, Thomas said, "All I have written is as straw." And so he came up with a sort of straw-based pasta. That is to say, a pasta that looks like straw. Okay. And he was going to have it in green and gold for the straw, to imitate the sort of straw look.
Yeah.
But then I told him the fish story, and then he added this delicious fish sauce to the pasta.
Oh.
And the result was amazing. So that was a good example of our collaboration. It was very fruitful.
Krista Lepard, did you flip through the book looking for your favorite saint or birthday?
So it's funny. So there are two on here that I looked to immediately. So first is my own birthday, which is October 18th, St. Luke. So good saint.
He was a
St.
doctor, so like,
right,
things that you would choke on that he would save you from. Allergies.
But his recipe is St. Luke's sizzling steak with herbal butter.
Oh.
So I have a good one.
Butter.
I'm excited about that. And then my daughter is born on June 29th. So that's Feast of St. Peter and Paul. Hers is not as, but it's funny because I like the way that you described this in here. St. Peter's fried fish, and it's a whole fish. And you say that eating a whole fish may be a bit dramatic for people who aren't used to their food staring back at them.
It certainly would be for a 2-year-old.
Right. I know. But you connect it to life's challenges, and I found that it's not just like, oh, here's some recipes, have fun, that there's a connection to the food.
Yeah, Michael, Krista's daughter Carmen, who'll be 2 in just a few weeks, she might prefer today's recipe. Pizza. Yeah, she likes she likes pizza.
She likes pizza.
No, absolutely. But I mean, we would have felt guilty not having a fish recipe for St. Peter.
Right.
The fisherman, right? I mean, we
got the fisherman
had to do it.
You had to do it.
And there actually are several species of fish named after St. Peter.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
When we take people on pilgrimage to the Holy Land, they're serving up probably what we would call tilapia, but they call it St. Peter's fish.
That's one of the breeds or one of the species.
It's the whole one with the face, and it's fried, and you're like, oh, how'd you get the breading on his nostrils and eyeballs? That's lovely.
That's exactly it. No, that's what, and so it's because of that tradition that we have that for St. Peter's Day in the book. But Krista, I have not tried every single one of the recipes in this book. I dared not second guess Father Leo. But I have tried the sizzling steak, and it's outstanding.
Yes. There you go. All right. Well, I guess we'll wait for your birthday for that one. Thank you so much, Michael Foley. It's so great to have you back, but also to entertain and educate and fill the bellies of our listeners. So we're going to put a link up on our radio blog as to where you can pick up your copy of Dining with the Saints, The Sinner's Guide to a Righteous Feast by our guest, Dr. Michael Foley, and Father Leo Patalinghug, the cooking priest. bustedhalo.com/radio. Great to see you again. Let's not wait. When you do one of these, when they say, can you do a Christmas one? Well, we got to have you back.
Would love it. I'd love to be back.
Great. All right. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.